and welcome back to the Philosophical Misfit podcast. Today, what I'm going to be talking about is plenty of different things, as per usual, but specifically TV and TV episodes, as opposed to movies, except I will be mentioning movies. But these episodes that I'm going to be talking about are probably my favorite episodes on TV. I don't think they're my favorite shows, but these are my favorite episodes that I have watched. And it's like, you know, when you watch a movie and sometimes you're like, okay, that movie was good. But then you see a movie and you're like, that movie hit me. It hit me in a certain way that it has me thinking for days and days and days and weeks. And I can't stop thinking about it, and it is literally changing my life. For me, one of my favorite movies of all time, that happened for me with Arrival, with Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner. That when I saw that movie, it hit a nerve in me that I could not stop thinking about it for weeks. And I couldn't stop watching it, actually. I just kept on watching it over and over and over again because I felt like something was hitting the depths of my being, whatever that is, spirit, soul, whatever you want to call it. It was hitting it. And so that's what these two episodes also did to me. The same thing that those really great movies, it's not just a great movie, it's not just a good or great movie, but it is one of those movies that just hits you in a way that it's like, this is doing something in me. It's almost the equivalent to like reading a very deep philosophical book, or just, I don't know, watching some philosophical speaker, and instead of, gathering all of this head knowledge, you're watching this art piece that it's saying things in a different manner. And that's the difference between how humans speak in conversation and how art speaks to the soul. It's a completely different language, but it's universal. Every human can understand it past their language barrier, and past whatever language barrier, if there is one, that it is. Art can speak past that. But that is a different topic of conversation. But it is in line with these episodes because, I mean, these episodes are incredible. So, first off, I want to, this quote, and I've mentioned this movie time and time again. This is one of those movies that the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, that was a good movie. But I have to say, back when I was going through, I was having very intense panic attacks every single day. The movie that I kept watching time and time again, and I've quoted it so many times throughout my content, is Doctor Strange. Probably my favorite singular superhero movie, Doctor Strange. And this quote in that, this past, I just watched the movie again. I've seen the movie so many times, but I just watched the movie again on Thanksgiving, because Thanksgiving for me, it was, I don't know why. I love the holidays. I love Thanksgiving, Christmas. I love this time of year. It is my favorite time of year by far, but for some reason this year, it's just not doing it for me. I don't know why. But for Thanksgiving, I think this was the first Thanksgiving that I did not have turkey, and I didn't have lunch or dinner. I mean, I ate lunch and dinner, but it wasn't like a Thanksgiving lunch and dinner. I just had breakfast with my parents and, my brother and sister-in-law. So that was fun. But anyway, on Thanksgiving, I was like, you know what? This doesn't feel like a holiday, but I'm going to have fun, and I'm going to do something that I love to do, something that gives me joy and gives me life. So I watched a movie, because those things, that gives me joy, that gives me life, that gives me vision for my future, because as a lot of you know, I am hopes and dreams and an aspiring actor. So I watched Doctor Strange. In this round of Doctor Strange, there's so many different quotes, like those movies that hit your soul. You watch them over and over again, and you get something different from it every single time. And so probably my favorite scene in that movie, and I'm not going to ruin the scene for you, but it is when Doctor Strange and the Ancient One they're having a conversation while time, they're having this conversation outside of their body in the astral realm, which I didn't know that's apparently when astral projection in the astral realm and all of that blew up. I had no idea. And then once I started studying astral projection years later, I was like, and then I watched Doctor Strange again. I was like, oh, wow, that's in Doctor Strange. But so they were having this conversation out of body in the astral realm, and time is severely slowed down, and it almost stopped. And so, because apparently that's what happens, at least in that movie, when you go into the astral dimension. Who knows if that's real? Possibly. But again, that is a completely different subject. But during this conversation, they talked about, I keep going on rabbit trails, but okay, I'm on it now. I promise I'm on it now. All right. So during this conversation, it's like one of those, like, this is the meaning of life conversations. And something that the Ancient One, she said in that conversation that, it's one of those things where I've heard it so many times, but it hit me in a different way. Probably because of, if you listen to my podcast having to do with the simulation theory and that whole panic attack, slipping into nervous breakdown, all of that, fear of death, all that kind of thing, coming at me again for the second time in my life, in that dramatic of a way, that is. But what the Ancient One said during this conversation is death is what gives life meaning. And that hit me in a different way. Because I do think that there's definitely truth to that statement. And so, thinking about it, I'm like, okay, there's definitely truth in that. But at the same time, it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, I need to continue to think about this, because that's a very intriguing, interesting, introspective, philosophical, all the good stuff. That's a very good thought. But it's an interesting thought, because why not is it that life, in living life, is what gives life meaning? Why is it that death is what gives life meaning? And also, what does that mean for eternal life? If death is what gives life meaning, then what does that mean for living life for eternity? So these are all questions that I don't have the answer to, but I've been thinking about them ever since watching that movie again. And so that quote, death is what gives life meaning. That is, keep that in mind as I'm talking about my two favorite episodes. And they're my favorite episodes because they gave me, while watching them, this completely surreal feeling of peace. Just about my life, about where I'm at. Like, as I was watching them, it was just like, it wasn't I'm on the edge of my seat thriller, which I do really enjoy those movies. But this was just I feel complete peace while I'm watching this. And it was in a different kind of way. It wasn't because sometimes, when you're watching like a really slow movie, it's just slow and boring and you find yourself falling asleep. This wasn't that. These two shows are very active shows. And so in these two episodes, it was like a very active, surreal kind of piece. And it has a lot to do with what the Ancient One and Doctor Strange said, that death is what gives life meaning. So these two shows, the first one is it's a sitcom, and it's probably my second favorite sitcom. My first favorite sitcom is by far The Office. I thought this sitcom was going to top it, but it hasn't, and I don't think it will. But yeah, first favorite sitcom is definitely The Office. But the second is called The Good Place. And if you are a metaphysical, philosophy of religion nerd like myself, then you will absolutely love this show. Please go and watch the show. Kristen Bell in it is incredible. She was nominated for a Golden Globe for, I think, the first season. Acting is amazing. The script is amazing. Everything about it is just absolutely incredible. And I was really surprised by the show. The whole thought of it, which is that these characters have died and gone to the good place, quote unquote. They ask, what about heaven and hell? And they're like, well, we don't really call it that, but there's the good place and there's the bad place. And so this whole entire show takes place in the afterlife, in quote unquote the good place. And so it's such a good show. If you got the time, please go and watch it. It's hilarious. It's a sitcom, so it's funny. But it also asks these incredible questions in each episode, and they talk about philosophy and all that kind of stuff. And it's just absolutely amazing. Now, the second show, so before I get to the episodes and what they're called and what they're about, the second show is not at all on my top favorite list of shows, or it's just not on my top favorite list. And everybody knows this show, and everybody knows why once I name it. It's not on my list of top favorites, and it is Game of Thrones. It's obvious if you've seen the show why it's not on my top favorite shows. It's like it could have been, but the eighth season, the eighth season. That's just the answer to why. So yeah, I don't think I really have to talk up or talk about Game of Thrones because so many people have seen it. It's a fantastic show. Every episode is like a movie, insanely character driven, which I had to get used to because I thought I was going to just watch a show that was like a Lord of the Rings movie, heavy action, like the Lord of the Rings, like the wars that happen in there, the battles. I thought that was going to be like every episode. Nope, had to change my expectations to a very character driven show. And once I did, I actually really, really enjoyed it. So anyway, now the episode. So going back to The Good Place, the episode that I'm talking about, just watch the show in its entirety. They're on the last season now, season 5, but the episode is in season 2, episode 9, and it's called The Best Self. And so basically what happens in the episode, I don't want to ruin it, spoil anything, but simply put, they are in the afterlife, and through a series of events that have happened, they have realized their doom, and they have realized that they might not, or they're not going to make it the next day. They're not going to make it the next morning. So there's 4 of them, and this basically 2, I don't know, we'll call them angels. I think one is called, his name is Michael, so I know that they, obviously they got that from the biblical narrative. And then the girl her name is Janet, and she's just an informational assistant. But we'll call them angels for the people who haven't seen it. So there's 4 humans and 2 angels. And so they're all like on the same team. They're all on the same side, and they have come to realize their doom. And once they've realized this, and they've realized that there's nothing else that they can do, they just party. They're in the afterlife. They can have, whatever they want. And if you're wondering why there's a doom even when they're in the afterlife, you're going to have to watch the show. But that's all I'm going to say, is that they realize their doom, and now they're just like, let's spend each moment to our last moments together. Let's spend we're in the afterlife. There's nothing more that we can do. We cannot do anything else. We have tried, we have done everything that we can do. And yet this is where we are. And so we might as well spend our last moments together, enjoying each other and just embracing this night, embracing this moment. And in that episode, they're dancing, they're laughing, they're enjoying each other. They're talking about their life on earth and the things that they did or wish they could have done. And as I'm sitting there watching it, I just felt this intense, surreal feeling of peace. And I just put your mind in that place of, you're in the afterlife. So, there's no fear of death. You're in the afterlife, and you have done everything that you can do. And now now you're facing what could possibly be the end or your doom or whatever. And but that night where they were all involved, they were all in it, and they were like, you know what? This is happening whether we like it or not. And so let's just enjoy this moment together. Let's have this night. Let's take this night and let's have it and enjoy this moment together. So I'm sure if you have watched Game of Thrones, you could probably guess the episode that I am talking about, because it's pretty much the same. It's the same narrative. And it is in season 8, ironically, and episode 2, and it's called A Night, Knight, of the Seven Kingdoms. And it's the same thing in this episode. The entire episode takes place the night before the White Walkers come, and they're like, we're going to die. We have to fight. We have to fight. And again, they're at the point of it's like, there is nothing that we can do. We have done everything that we can possibly do. We've rounded up the Seven Kingdoms. We've got everyone that will fight this battle with us. And we have done everything that we can do. And it is happening whether we like it or not the next morning. And we are facing what could be our doom, what could be our death. But that is the most beautiful episode in that entire show to me, because that's the night where they all just like, it doesn't matter what kingdom you are a part of. It doesn't matter if you were enemies. None of that matters. It's just like, we're here together and we're here to fight. And we're here to fight to the death if we have to. But for our last night here on this earth, or whatever they call it in the whole Game of Thrones world, like, let's I'm getting tripped up on Earth because I'm like, did they call it Earth or did they call it something else? And I'm like thinking back through the entire show, and I'm like, did they ever call it Earth? Because I know, like in Lord of the Rings, they call it Middle Earth. They don't call it Earth. So I'm like, did Game of Thrones, did they call it something? But anyway, okay. So basically, like, they did all that they can do. And now, like, they have gathered up pretty much everyone on Earth and everyone that will fight with them. And in this night, this morning, this night, right before this battle takes place, this thing is going to happen. It doesn't matter what side you were on. All that matters is that you're a human. And all that matters is that you're there to fight. And you're there to fight for humanity. And it's just like everything like came out in the open. It was like, yeah, these were my dreams. This is what I did with my life. This is, everyone was loving, encouraging, and there was, difficult conversation that came up, and there was great conversation that came up. But everyone was just open and out there because they were like, we're going to die. Basically, I mean, that's basically what they were all saying. It's like, we're going to die. And so, like, let's enjoy these last moments together, and be in this moment. Let's not waste this night. Let's not take it for granted. So those two episodes are very, very similar. And like I said, when I was watching these, I just got this incredibly surreal feeling of peace, because I thought to myself, like, why don't we all live like that every day? And this is going to get a bit, well, some of you might think this is dark, but it's in the context of those two episodes and in the context of everything that I just said, is the question, why don't we all live like we're going to die the next day? Now, this gets into, there's two ways that you could look at this, really. There are some people in the world where, if they lived life like they were going to die the next day, they would just give up. They're like, well, we're already done. We're already done. So whatever. And there's other people who would say, we're going to die the next day. And so let's fully embrace this moment and be with everyone that we love. But, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, even the people who say, I'm giving up, I'm already dead, whatever. If those people really, like, if they were actually in the situation that they were going to die the next day, I have a hard time believing that anyone would actually be like that. That it's like, whatever, you guys do what you want, and I'm going to die tomorrow. So there's no point in, getting to know you and enjoying this moment with you, whatever. I don't think anybody would do that. Maybe you disagree, but I don't think anybody would do that. But, that is because, and the reason I don't think anybody would do that is because they know and they can see it is within their tangible grasp a time limit that is on their life. And I think if that time limit was put on everybody, then our perspectives would completely change. And so that's what I'm talking about, really, when I'm talking about why don't we live like we're going to die the next day, like we're going to die tomorrow. It's like, will we die tomorrow? Probably not. Could we die tomorrow? Yes, but again, probably not. But what if, looking at these two episodes, it just got me thinking, after I watched them, I was like, what if we lived life like that? Like, why don't we? And here's the thing. I think that we would live life like that if we were more aware of the time that we actually have, of a time limit. Because isn't it crazy how people, I forget what podcast number it was, but I think I called it, I'm so sick of being human. It's like, we got the time to play video games all day, but we genuinely care about our friends and family, but they don't know it. And so we'll play video games all day, and we'll be on social media all day, but yet the ones that we actually care about and love are like downstairs, but we're not telling them. We're not like spending time with them. For some reason, we care about what everyone else thinks. It's like we spend money in on crazy things that everybody else wants, and it's this popular trend that's going on, but then it's like, do we actually want it, or is the only reason we want it is because everybody else has it? And by the way, we're broke, but we want to spend money on this so that other people will like us. It's like, that's like what it's like to be human in this first world, like contemporary culture that we have. And it's just like, why? Why do we live like that? Why is that what being a human is? And so I talk in that episode of just like, changing that and changing what it actually means to be a human. And I think the same exact thing can be applied here, that it's like, what if we lived like we knew the time limit that was on our life? I think it would really, really change our perspective on living and our perspective on how we act in our everyday life. Like, take for instance, for me, I've started applying this thought process, really, that's come up while thinking about and watching these two episodes. Is like, I'm a very, very introverted person. And so I just observe the situation. Like, I don't talk. Like, if you would meet me in real life, if you don't know me in real life, I'm the quietest person in the room. I know for those of you who know me from my YouTube channel and all my content, all I do is talk. So I might seem like a very outgoing, extroverted person, but I am probably the most introverted person that you will ever meet. And so normally I just observe, and I'm like, well, there's always time to observe. So like, I want to make sure I'm in a safe space, and then I can be myself and I'll feel accepted, which, by the way, some of that is out of fear. But anyway, and I know that, and it's taken me time to get over that, get past that. But one of the things that's helped me get over that and get past that is realizing this time limit, or just practicing, like, what if there is a time limit? Not just on my life, because I think it's a selfish thing to think about, oh yeah, there's tomorrow. But what about their life? And so, and if you truly value yourself for the gift that you are to the world, it's like, they need to know who I am. They need to know who you are. And so I've been practicing of like, what if I have an opportunity to touch this stranger or this person's life, but I'm so wrapped up in my introvertedness that I'm not going to be willing to be open and be outgoing and actually, speak my mind and be myself. Because I think I know that if I knew I was going to die tomorrow, all of the introvertedness, whatever, there wouldn't be introvert, extrovert. It would be like everyone would completely and totally be themselves right out in the open. Cause they're like, well, if not now, then when? And so that's one of the things that that's how I've been putting it into practice for myself personally, is just like, you know what? I'm just going to, like, whatever happens, happens. Like, and then that gets into the whole thing of overcoming fear. And it's just, going for it. And, my whole step-by-step process that I've talked about many times on my podcast and on my channel of overcoming fear. But okay, so that's how I've applied it in my life. But I think there are many other ways that this can be applied. But something so with this whole concept of living like we're going to die tomorrow, it's not just, it's realizing the time limit, but it's also, like embracing that moment and being with who you're with, and realizing, like, if there was a time limit on it, if you knew there was a time limit on your life, and like I'm saying, not just your life, but other people's life, if you were aware of that time limit, which, by the way, there is a time limit. We are going to die. And for me, I'm only 25 years old, but it's like, why do I act like at the same time, yes, I have so much time. I'm only 25 years old. But at the same time, I think my dreams in life and the things that I want to happen would happen so much faster if I realized that there was a time limit. And it's like, actually, I don't know, let's just say I got 60 years left. I have 60 years. What would I be able to accomplish in 60 years if every single day I lived like I was going to die the next day? And I took every single day and I lived it to the fullest. For me, that brings, I don't know how you feel about that listening to this, but to me, that actually brings peace into my life. Because there's this love-hate relationship that not just me, I think everybody has with death. Because I think there is that fear, and the fear is the unknown. But I think there's also a peace, because it's going to be over. It's going to be done. The fight will be over. The fight will be won. You are you did it. You live life, and now you can rest. Whether there's an afterlife that comes afterwards, or whether you just cease to exist, whatever your beliefs are. It's like, I think there is both this fear of the unknown, but there's also this incredible peace that comes with the thought of death. But there's only really that peace there if regret isn't present. And regret won't be present if you truly live every single day like it was your last day. If you truly live every single day like you could die the next day. And whether you're thinking of that and you're like, that's a really extreme way of thinking about it. Maybe it is. And maybe it is, but maybe it's not. Because I do think there's reality in this, but at the same time, yeah, I'm a very extreme person. I can go from 0 to 100, and I'm a very extreme, very passionate person. And so that's why these thoughts, this frame of mind, this mindset, this thinking is totally me, and it works for me. And so thinking in those terms of, you can think of it in a time limit, but I like to think of it as, what if I was going to die the next day? You could be like, oh, I just have, really really this goes back to like acting training that I have, and it's something that's called like upping the stakes. Like, because you can have a scene that you do that it's like, oh, this seems like a really simple scene, but you got to up the emotional level of it, and so you up the stakes, and you're like, this is a bigger deal than what it appears to be. And so to intensify the scene, to bring it to life, depending on what the scene calls for, you up the stakes. And so for me, this thought process and this mindset is upping the stakes on life, but it's intensifying it. And it's for me, it works for me. It makes life all the more exciting and joyful and peaceful. This mindset that I'm talking about, because I really do, going back to what I said earlier, I really do think that if we were going to die tomorrow, I don't think anybody would just say, all right, you know what, I give up. Like, no, like, everybody go away. I'm going to be a complete grouch. I don't think anybody would do that. I think that people would completely embrace the night, embrace the moment, and be totally present with everybody and be fully themselves. I really, really do believe that. There are people who, like, if you make it a hypothetical, it won't work. And that goes for, and, maybe that's the acting training as well. Because, if you just think about, like, if I'm in a scene as an actor and I just think, oh, this is all totally hypothetical, like, this isn't real, I'm just acting, then the scene's not going to work. Like, you can read, that's a bad actor. You can read that on actor's face where it's like, yeah, they know they're acting. But if you actually look at it as of, no, this is happening. Like, this is my life. This is who I am. You can tell, you can read that actor's face. And I think it's the same exact way for this analogy and for this, for life in general. And so, I mean, I feel like I could really revelate and elaborate on this thought, but I think I'm hitting home on this thing in a pretty good way. That people, I think the world, I think people, I think our lives in general, not just as individuals, but for the world around us, would be a better place. And this is part of this is a mindset that I think helps make the world a better place, is to live each day like it was your last. Live each day like you were going to die the next day. For me, that brings peace into my life. And that brings like this, I'm going to totally embrace it, because I think where there's this fear of death and this fear of the unknown, it's always a fear of death if it might not happen, right? There's always this fear if it's, well, I could get out of it. I don't have to die. I don't want to die. I'm not going to die. No. Like, it's, if there's this possibility that it might not happen, then I think there's this fear that immediately gets put in there, because it's like this war that's happening inside yourself. And then you're thinking about things that you could do in life. And then it's like, oh, but I don't want to die, that kind of thing. But what if you thought of it as like, there's no way out. You have done everything that you can do. And I think that's key here. And that's what did it for me with the 2 episodes that I'm talking about. In those episodes, they did everything that they can do. There was nothing else that could be done. And so they totally embraced it. They were there. They were with it. And it brought peace. And as a viewer, it brought peace. And to me, it's like, thinking about life and thinking about, I've done, well, have I lived today, and have I done everything that I can do today? And, if I were to die tomorrow, what would actually not, well, that's a great question. What would actually matter? And how can you live today to the absolute fullest? And then you could get into the whole topic of discussion of what does that even mean to live life to the absolute fullest day by day? it might not be what you think it is. But I'm not going to really elaborate on that because I think that is a totally subjective thought process to the individual. But I want to, wrapping it all up, those 2 episodes bring me so much peace when I think about the concept and applying it to life. Because what if we lived life with that time limit? What if we lived life every single day like we were going to die the next day? And I just think, to me, that brings a huge peace. And honestly, whenever I'm in a situation because this has happened since I've watched these 2 episodes, whenever I'm in a situation that brings fear, I think to myself, that brings the fear, but an action is required of me, but there's fear involved, and that's why I'm hesitating to do the action, whether that be talking to somebody or doing something or whatever. I think about this, and then I ask myself, what if I was going to die tomorrow, and this would be my last chance to do this? Then all the fear goes away. I'm like, what happens. And I know that I'm about to conquer this, and I'm about to do this. So for me, it completely changes my perspective, and for me, it just brings so much peace. And this is how art changes people. This is how art changes lives. I mean, these episodes, these shows, the movies that I'm talking about, I mean, I am a firm believer in art and that it can change people and change lives. And, I've been talking for, 36 minutes, 37 minutes now. And the only reason I've been able to talk this long and have these revelations on this topic and this subject is because of these TV episodes, is because of art. Like, art changes people, it changes lives. And so, yeah, it's just incredible. It's amazing. But again, totally off topic and a different topic of discussion. But what I want to end this podcast with is, I've mentioned it before, one of my favorite people on the planet, Gary Vaynerchuk. He's absolutely incredible. If you haven't watched his stuff, he's this, I've talked about him before on this podcast, but he's just this mastermind at social media marketing and entrepreneurship and making it in today's world of doing what you love for a living. And so I was watching, this was actually one of the first pieces of content that I saw by Gary, and he was leaving this venue. He did this keynote speech somewhere, and he was leaving this venue, and this fan followed him out of the venue and was like, "Oh, Gary, I love you so much. I love you too." And she's like, has her phone out filming, and she's like, "All right, Gary, quick, 3 words that 3 words of motivation, 3 words that are gonna help you in life or whatever." And he takes this moment to think, and then he looks at the camera and he says, "You're gonna die." That was, and I found that so profound. And I was like, oh my God, like, yeah, that is like the ultimate 3 words, which I mean, going to. So I guess technically it's 4 words, but whatever. You're gonna die. Yeah, I guess bad grammar or whatever. But is gonna even a word? That's a good question. Is gonna in the dictionary? I don't know. Well, I mean, written on my iPhone right now, gonna isn't underlined in red, so I guess it is a word. So you're gonna die. 3 words of ultimate motivation. And I think that is the ultimate motivation. So, yeah, those 2 episodes, favorite episodes on TV, most peaceful episodes I have ever watched. And I guess I haven't gotten a sense of intense, surreal peace from anything really until watching these 2 episodes. And that's why they stood out to me so much. So if you want to watch those episodes, for the Game of Thrones ones, you got to watch, 7 seasons to really get it, get the whole character arc of everybody and the story arc and everything. But The Good Place, if you want to watch that episode, I mean, you can fly through all those seasons in a weekend, and it's an incredibly amazing show. Please go and watch it, and I guarantee you, well, I hope, for me it's a guarantee, but you know what? I'm just going to guarantee you. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Whatever. I might die tomorrow. So, you're going to feel peace from those episodes. So, in the words of Gary Vaynerchuk, ultimate motivation for this podcast and for your life, you're going to die. It sounds so morbid, but I don't know. For me, it brings this peace, and it just gets rid of that fear. So, yeah, that's really all I have to say in this podcast. I think I pretty much got all my thoughts out there. So, yeah, go watch these episodes, and just remember to, well, you're gonna die. God, that's like the worst way to go out on a podcast, but that's pretty much what sums it up. So, you're gonna die. Do something about it. And yeah, that's it for this one. So, I will see you, Misfits, in the next one. Peace.